I think we're on. I hope that this is recording the screen, I said. So, the charge of the Light Brigade. What do you want to write about? You nearly always need to write that he's chosen a real historical incident. It's not a made-up thing. And he's putting his slant on. It was a disaster. It's a historical disaster that he's turned into a victory for the courage of our soldiers. You're going to write about the excitement of the verses, surely, the rhythm and rhyme of them. People love this poem for that. Canon to right of them, canon to left of them. It's a heroic regular rhyme and rhythm. You're going to write about ruling the people. They've got someone had blundered, which he did add into the poem. Someone had blundered, but that's it. The whole focus is on the ordinary soldiers, not on the leaders, and they are praised for their obedience, their mindless obedience. And how does it end? With instructions, exhortations, EXHORT, exhortations. Honour the charge they made, honour the Light Brigade. Okay, that's just some methods. The revenge. Oh, I've got so much. I think it's all the same. The narrator, so it's a real incident, but it's 300 years ago. And it's a disaster, which is, a triumph, actually. And it's a triumph of persistence and refusing to give up, even in the face of I was going to say odds, but even in the face of certain death. And the hero is Sir Richard, even though when you look at his decisions, they're largely reckless. So, real event, number one. The narrator is, it feels like an omniscient narrator. It's someone who knows a lot about what's going on, but it does turn out to be one of the crew members. We laid them on the ballast down below. We brought them all aboard. It's actually one of the ordinary seamen is the narrator, who is presenting Sir Richard and his decisions heroically. There's a little bit of time given to the fear of the sailors. So in verse 4, to fight is but to die. But Sir Richard talks them all round. Look, we be all good Englishmen. And we roared in verse 5, we roared a hurrah. He actually talks them into it. And that's a good thing in the poem. He can't make you think it's a good thing, but the poem's trying to push you to thinking it's a good thing. So the focus on Sir Richard, you'd want to write about one of the heroic things he did is overcome the objections of his men who don't want to die. The way his suicidal decisions are presented as triumphant. So you want lions, the lion lay there dying. And ending with sort of God being on his side, the weather taking down the ship so that the Spanish don't get it. If you want, you can throw in the othering of the Spanish and the British exceptionalism and racism of that they are devils and swarthy, which means dark-skinned. That's all those methods. There's lots of other things to talk about. I'm just giving you some big key ones. Okay, Ulysses. Famous story. Every educated person in Tennyson's time knows Homer, Troy, the journey of Odysseus, which is so just calling it Ulysses, we all know. And he's placed it at the time when his heroic adventures are over and he's supposed to just go back to normal, and he doesn't want to. He spent 20 years trying to get back, and now he's back. Don't want it. And I'm not sure, people debate. This first verse could be inside his head, him talking to himself, and then a speech to his people, this is my son. I'm not sure, that might still be in his head when he's talking about this is my son, my own telemachus. He works his work and I work and I mine. Definitely by here he's talking out loud to my mariners. So lots of people would call this a dramatic monologue, where he is making a speech and you are kind of listening into it, and the sailors, the mariners, are listening to him. So dramatic monologue, maybe some interior monologue. It's up to you how you want to see it. It's in 3 chunks. Famous story. That you would see him as a hero. So heroic ending. Lots of people quote it. Lots of people have got it, in like embroidery things on their walls. To strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. People find it inspiring. Okay, you might write about the structure, what's wrong with where he is, how he misses who he used to be. He's got his son to take over with the lukewarm praise, and ending with the inspiring, let's go, we're not dead yet. Done. On to Lotus Eaters. So going from the big virtues, this is one of the few poems, I know I come to it, where it says choric song by the ordinary people. So this is the voice of one of the sailors who's like, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm perfectly happy. I won't be welcome at home. Perfectly happy here. Thank you very much. I don't need to go fighting your wars and your battles for you. I'm done. So is that them being drugged and saying stupid things because they've taken drugs? Or is that them being drugged and therefore being able to think clearly outside their society's box? So the voice of the ordinary people, but people debate whether they're deluded and need to be led, or whether they're actually, yes, right at last. And that voice starts at choric song. Before that, the bits before it is a more traditional omniscient narrator who's explaining what's going on. You would write again, it's a famous episode of Odysseus coming to this land on his journey, on his Odyssey even. And it ends with them saying they're not going anywhere. Rest ye, brother mariners, we will not wonder more. You might want to Google what actually happens after they leave the lotus-eating island. They do go, but he doesn't put that in his poem. It's just left with them, rightly or wrongly, refusing. So I keep trying to tell you the narrator, the setting, and the ending. 3 really big whoppy things to write about. Loads of others, symbols, images, throw them all in. A tone of excitement. Loads of other things in lots of them. So Godiva, a famous story, again, who knows, myth or true, myth and true. And he's given it a frame He's at Coventry in the 1850s or something, and he's 1,000 summers back. This thing happened. So it's not just us who are really nice to poor people. It's people back in the day were really nice to poor people. Anyone? I hope I've made you furious. How nice were Victorians to poor people? Well, they put them in prison, called workhouses, and they put little kids up chimneys. They put a lot of them in Australia. They were not nice. But anyway, not just us who go on about the rights and longs and love the people well. Oh, yeah. You mean the medieval people were as good as you? That's not great. Anyway, he's given it that modern frame, or contemporary, you call it contemporary frame to him. And then he's gone back to this famous story. You can write about his change, that there's no one to watch her, and what that's implying about the importance of her sexuality being hidden, and how it proves she's really good, that she's desperate to hide her body, because that's what good ladies do. You might write about he's added in the peeping Tom, the working class rebel, who is not just a pathetic person demanding and hoping that Lady Godiva can help him, but just goes against it all, hates him in the poem. You don't have to, you can read it differently. So you talk about the famous poem, you talk about the additions and the changes. And you've got the sort of poet voice as your narrator there, offering judgment on how beautiful and brilliant she is, and ignoring really the people that she's doing it for. And ending with her triumph. So what I haven't said are the images and metaphors and symbols, and they are all really important too. But the big things, who's telling this story? Where is it set in time? So that was a time setting I just said for Godiva. Where is it set in time? Where is it set in like knowledge of this? Assuming your audience know the story, place. How does it end? You can always write about how it begins or where there's a shock in it, as well as the images and symbols.